Assalamu alaikum. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. I bear witness that there is no God but Allah, and I bear witness that Muhammad is his servant. My beloved brothers and sisters, it's a great honor to be able to participate in this historic conference. I think that the American people will be proud that such a conference has taken place. As we all know, in America, there is a great appreciation of the process of involvement of all of its citizens. So I think this conference can really go to the heart of the American people to know that the Islamic community is moving forward toward involvement in the entire process of the American life, not so much as to be subsumed under it or to attach itself to the traditional ways of politics, but to bring something to the American people, to offer something to them that will help them, that will relieve some of the pressures that exist, that will clear up some of the religious problems that have grown into America and its secular life. So it's very important, and all of us who are here are working together to see how we can better the American life through the practice of Islam. There are those who have said prior to this conference that there is a question of legitimacy for Muslims to be involved in the political process. However, our book, the Quran, given to us by Allah, states, "And let there be among you a community calling others to good, to command equity, and to forbid evil, and those who attain the felicity." Allah has ordained that the Muslims become a witness to mankind. And in order for Muslims to carry out this edict, they must be involved in promoting a better society and a better way of life. America is indeed a very great country with even greater potentials. It would be tragic to see such a country fall victim to the things that other countries have fallen victim to. Go the way of Rome, go the way of Nazi Germany, go the way of Greece, and go the way of all these other countries. It would be a shame. But America has hope. It has hope in this revived community of Islam that now have come together as a ummah to involve themselves in making America a better place. The American people should welcome this, and we as Muslims welcome the opportunity to participate in this way. When the Muslims were in the minority in Mecca, Prophet Muhammad guided them in such a way that they were able to survive the oppression of Mecca. His moves were actually political and strategic. Even the Hijra was political as well as a military decision. And when he negotiated a treaty, as we all recall from the history, in order to have the Muslims to be able to come and make the pilgrimage, we all know that he signed documents there that some of the Muslims thought it was a sellout of the Muslim community because he agreed that they could not come that year, but in the following year. But it proved a strategic and a proper move. And this was what was the will of Allah, and the Quran verifies this by saying that it was a great triumph. It was a turning point for the Muslims, and the Muslims succeeded from there on, and eventually all of Mecca became Muslims. Today we are in an era of ijtihad, of reasoning, taking the reasoning that Allah has given us with, using the criteria of the Quran, and trying to come together to formulate an agenda which will be good for us. Now, as we know, that Muslims do not embrace traditional politics, not in the sense that it would be taking on the same characteristics that are traditional for the American politician. I mean by that the bribes, the underhanded deals, the falsifications of ballots, and those kinds of things. Any instrument of government is neutral in itself. The people themselves make it evil or they make it good. The Muslims want to bring back character to any political system, no matter where it is. And if you allow Muslims into the political system, they will make it a much better political system. In the past, however, here in America, we must acknowledge that many of the Muslims have become isolationists, and their views have narrowed, and their agenda had narrowed, basically to religion, to fiqh, and to rituals, and to fiqh. Thus, the Muslims found themselves perpetually reacting to the agendas of others, or to the agenda of other people, or to other groups. Now, Allah says in Quran, "And why should you not fight in the cause of Allah and those who being weak or ill-treated and oppressed?" The Muslim women and children whose cry is, "Our Lord, rescue us from this town whose people are oppressors, and raise for us from the one who will protect, and raise from us from the one who will help." Now this verse in the Quran is one of an appeal by a people who need help. Now, do we not see the same kind of anguish, the same kind of appeal here in America? Do we not hear the American people crying out? Cannot we see that the country is infested with dope, that the educational system is in chaos, that the political system is now in a state of confusion, unable to make sound and just decisions, bound up by treaties that have tied the American people's hands and tied the American government's hands from doing what is best? They need a rescue, and perhaps this conference, the conclusions that comes from this conference and the agendas that come out of this conference can help the American people. Now, this session is titled "Toward Formulating a Muslim Agenda," and I felt that it would not be necessary, because I'm sure that an agenda will be formed, to try to outline some type of agenda or the items of the agenda that we should undergo. I felt that it was better to talk about some of the thought processes that are necessary to develop a proper agenda. Until nearly 2 years ago, I had the opportunity to formulate a preamble for a meeting of several Muslim brothers who were concerned about some of these issues and concerned about the things that were going on in our society. And this preamble reads as thus, and we can apply it to ourselves here. At this very moment, there is a group of men and or women somewhere in an open forum or a private meeting planning our future. I repeat, at this very moment, there is a group of men or women somewhere in an open forum or private meeting planning our future. They will be justified in claiming the right to decide our future if we have no plans of our own. We shall forfeit our rights even to protest unless we agree to sit down and plan a future for ourselves, for our children, and for the societies in which we live. Now, we call this defensive thinking. We raise these questions. Who are the people deciding our future? What are their purposes? What are their plans? How will they affect us? And how shall we know their plans? Shall we support their plans? Are their plans good for us? Or shall we counter their plans? And then we turn to the question of establishing an agenda. We must always begin with the critical question, and this is one. The first one is this: assuming that we have laid down some plans or an agenda previously, where do we expect our plans to culminate? If we've laid down plans in the past, where will we be 5 years from now? Now, this is the thinking process. Apply it to yourself individually, for your home or your family, or for your perhaps your trip next year or the Hajj or somewhere. Are your plans in sync? If you made plans, have you monitored the plans? And can you predict or estimate or guesstimate where you will be or where your plans will be 5 years from now? You can go and you can ask any Muslim or, in fact, Christian or anyone really these questions. You'll find that it's very difficult to answer. But the people who rule and the people who make things happen are people who follow this thought process. At least that's what we've come to understand. So as you can see, we're firmly convinced that we must develop an effective process of thought as a prerequisite for laying down plans to affect our future. The better laid plans, the better the plans are laid, the easier it is to project into the future. It's important to understand that we that there can be no successful plan in a vacuum. This has been the failing of the Ummah worldwide. It must be realized that a successful agenda must be planned with respect to the playing field where other agendas are vying in competition. Even the priorities we give to the items on our agenda must be considered and planned in light of such competition. We might ask ourselves this question: what impact does the recent Supreme Court decision have on the Muslim community? How is that going to affect us now and in the future? What plans should we make to benefit from those rulings if they're positive? And what plans should we make to nullify these decisions or counter them if these plans have harmful effects upon us? We must plan well into the future and anticipate things in order for us to make an agenda. Now, we might also ask, what effect of any given foreign policy action by the government, what impact does that have on our Ummah in America? And we must consider what actions we should take, what plans we should make into the future. Now, let's give an example. Everybody knows about the Rushdie book, the blasphemy. Let us look at this. The Muslims were taken by surprise and really a propaganda beating at that time. This has changed now, and the American people, as time has gone on, have come to know that the book absolutely was blasphemy. And as a result of the Muslims' counter-arguments, many people now are forming groups to attack such scandalous propaganda, pornography, terrible television programs of violence. You can see. So we have gotten some good consequence out of it. But from the propaganda, initially, we were bested in that, the Muslims were. Now, if the Ummah, knowing the propensity of the publishing houses, especially coming out of London, if the Muslims had calculated the trend and the psycholistic kinds of attacks that have come, the Muslims could have been better prepared with contingency plans of one thing or another, the media or whatever, to have countered the Rushdie book prior to it coming out. A book could have been written prior to Rushdie and published, which would have nullified anything that Rushdie had said. But this is anticipated planning. This is strategic planning. This is done by all people and all nations that have ever achieved anything, and we, the Muslims, have to develop this in this way. Now, a successful agenda must be planned with critical attention to the priorities of the issues, as we have stated. Can the Muslim community be successful and act as a balanced collective if one half of the community is rich and the other half poor? One half in ivory towers, others in slum tenements. One half economically solvent, the other half poverty-ridden. One half academically degreed, and the other half high school dropouts. Now, my reason for saying that is that in every society you have this. But the wise societies try to bring about a balance in their way of life and in their people. The Quran is based on balance, the mizan, if I'm not pronouncing it correctly. Throughout the Quran, it is balanced. If we're able to balance our communities, we can then get the benefit from all of the people of our community. We know that we know of a hadith which speaks about the neglect of a given part of the body. I cannot quote the hadith, but I know it states that if your arm, if something is wrong with your arm, it affects the whole body, or if something is wrong with some part of your body, it affects the whole. You have to take care of that which hurts you. We have to look into the Ummah and find the Muslims that are hurting. And we must try to heal that, because if we can't heal that, then we'll all be hurting. We must go as a unified body, and this must be the way of our Ummah. Another important consideration is the awareness of the culturally inherited abilities and expertise that some of our people have, even as ethnic groups or as individuals. We must work an agenda in order to facilitate the capacities of individuals who have particular skills, and we must also do this in terms of collective groups of people. There is a fact in life that there are various different groups, tribes, races, who have particular propensity to be able to do various things. Now, that doesn't mean that one is better than the other. Allah blesses each people and each person with something that they're able to do better than anyone else. Allah has given each individual an individual fingerprint. No one else has your fingerprint. That should tell you that you are an individual in Allah's sight in the collective. But that also should let you know that you have something and a perspective that no one else has. So if you can bring your perspective, if you can bring your talents and your people from yourself and from your group to the collective, then these things can be put into an agenda. I want to conclude here in quoting the final comment of the preamble document which we wrote for that earlier meeting that I talked about. And it states, "This meeting has been designed to assess the priorities and to determine the effectiveness of our thought processes as they relate to our growth and development of the Ummah. With its commonality of interests, and the number of people is not important, but the capacity for original thinking, mature emotionality, practical planning, and strategic foresight is imperative." Now, it's a lot of gobbledygook in this. I read it slow so you could possibly understand it. But what it simply means is that people have to lower their egos when they come into working together in agendas. There was a beautiful song, "We Are the World." That song was accomplished, and it sent so much beautiful music around the world by an act done by the director. All of these people were entertainers. All of them had huge, oversized egos. How could you get them all to come together and work together? The director put a sign over the door. When they walk through, it says, "Leave your ego at the door." And they had a beautiful song. That's a lesson to all of us, and I think we'll all be successful. I want to thank the chairman. I want to thank the ISNA PAC, Brother Al Moody, who worked so hard to help put this together, for giving us an opportunity to express ourselves in a meeting like this. Assalamu alaikum.
Alaikum assalam wa rahmatullah.